game I've been looking forward to since its announcement trailer was revealed at E3 2010 is Rayman Origins. Ubisoft finally takes a break from milking the rabbits for all they're worth and allows Rayman to step into the spotlight once again. Rayman Origins is a return to the old school. The majority of this gaming experience will have you running, jumping, and attacking enemies, and it really will take you back to a time where 2D platformers were still relevant and still desired. The story takes place in a world called Glade of Dreams, where Rayman and his buddy Globox are just hanging around and they accidentally disturb an old lady who's living in the underworld. She gets pissed and responds by unleashing creatures known as Darktoons into the world, kidnapping Electoons and the large-breasted, thick-thighed nymphs. Anyway, the goal is to rescue all of the imprisoned friends to restore peace to the world. Certain worlds and areas will contain an Electoon requirement to progress. By collecting the golden bugs known as looms, you can unlock extra Electoons at the end of a level as well as a gold medal. Playing a level you previously cleared will turn the level into a time trial, which, clearing the record time, will award you another bonus Electoon. You can control Rayman, Globox, or a Teensy, which is a mini version of your character. There are several different costumes to unlock as well, so keep an eye out for those Electoons. The one feature that made me smile, as well as shout in frustration time and time again, is the difficulty. Granted, it's not as difficult as the original Rayman, being that you have infinite lives this time around, but it is still quite a challenge. There are levels you can unlock where you must chase a runaway treasure chest through a quick-scrolling platforming nightmare. These levels only get more brutal as the game progresses. You are easily looking at 15 to 20 hours to get 100% completion, depending on your skill level. Want even more of a challenge? Have a friend pick up another controller and join in. If said friend is someone that sucks ass at platformers, expect brutal difficulty. Multiplayer is fun, if completely chaotic in some areas. Rescuing the full-figured, and quite sexy, nymphs will award you new abilities, such as the ability to dive underwater, glide in the air, attack, and climb up walls. The humor is quite French in its style and explains the journey leading up to Rayman 2, which was a brilliant game in its own right. The visuals really speak for themselves. Lush, stunning, beautiful, brilliant. The controls and gameplay are solid and remind me a bit of Donkey Kong Country Returns. Players can use the Wii remote and nunchuck combo, or the classic controller. The music is very catchy and oftentimes very attention-grabbing. I am personally very fond of the stage result screen music myself. Now sure, this game is or will be available on every current console and handheld, but don't assume that since it's on the Wii, that it is a downgrade. It's really not. It's a true platforming nostalgic masterpiece, and the Wii version is just as beautiful as the other ports. One key bonus on the Wii port? It has faster loading times. Sure, it's not 1080 in HD resolution, but at least you get superior load times and nothing stripped. Game of the year? Hardly. But most fun game of the year? I'd bet money on that. Rayman is back in all his 2D glory, and no rabbids. Nuff said. Atari has been on this kick lately of taking their arcade classics and revamping them. We've seen it with Haunted House and Yar's Revenge, and with the help of Way Forward, Centipede Infestation continues this wonderful trend. Now, I'll just sit back and wait for them to remake one of my favorite video games of all time, and the first video game I ever played in my life, the 1983 classic Food Fight. Come on Atari, get on it! Much like the original 1980 Centipede, the object of this game is to destroy bugs and centipedes before they eat you. Infestation, however, adds some new flavor to the old formula. For starters, you have an isometric view and a twin-stick style of shooting. Reminds me of classics like Total Carnage and Smash TV. And the character movement reminds me of Outrigger for the Sega Dreamcast. As far as run and gun games go, this one is pretty unique. Killing bugs that have a seed attached to them will cause a tower to grow, which will auto-fire at approaching enemies. It's really that old school Centipede feel, with tower defense elements thrown in. Spiders that hang down from above will give you an assortment of different weapons if you destroy them, and you even have a stomp attack for when enemies get too close. I was hoping for an evade or roll command, but that would have really broken the game. You can use the Wii Remote and Nunchuck combo as well as the classic controller, which is the preferred method in my opinion. The former has a better precision, but I find the classic controller more comfortable in a game such as this one. You can hold up to 4 weapons at a time, each being mapped to the face buttons for your convenience. Each stage has a Centipede mini-boss to fight, along with specific boss stages. Some of these bosses take a ton of damage to be put down, so it's mainly a war of attrition with these huge bugs. The controls and the gameplay themselves are solid and smooth, and the multiplayer makes the game even more enjoyable. Music is decent, nothing catchy, but nothing distracting either. The game has its flaws, of course. The story is clearly not meant to be taken seriously, has really low-grade artwork, and the voice acting sounds like they phoned it in.
Yeah, I haven't been back there since, you know. What's it like?
Why did you leave?
When the bomb dropped, I was 12. My brother was 13. Our dad was in the missile command. He was actually there at the base when they let one through. And even though the impact was pretty far away, it shredded our house.
The animated cutscenes are pretty good, but nothing special. There are quite a few achievements to unlock, which in turn unlock images, movies, and more in the extras section. Fans of the original might be a bit let down by the challenge simply because there isn't much of it here. Granted, there is an insane mode, but it's about as insane as watching an adorable puppy sleep. Aww. Multiplayer makes the game considerably easier. The missions where you must protect Maisie are probably the most difficult, but even that isn't saying much. This is a game that caters to the fans of the original. It's a fun game if you simply want to kill some bugs with a friend for a couple hours, but fans of run and gun games will enjoy this for a short while regardless. However, I'd still recommend Smash TV if you want more of a challenge. Centipede Infestation is available now for the Wii. Pick it up. After 10 years, Kirby returns to his console roots in this new Wii platformer. Originally intended to be released on the Nintendo GameCube in 2005, Kirby's return to Dreamland was practically presumed cancelled when Kirby's Epic Yarn was announced. Thankfully, after 11 years in development, this game finally saw the light of day. Those of you who are like me, who longed for the days of Kirby inhaling enemies and copying their abilities, is upon us once again. The basic premise of the game has Kirby going through each world, defeating its respective boss, and obtaining missing pieces and energy spheres belonging to a crashed spaceship owned by a mysterious alien named Magalore. Now, speaking of energy spheres, there are 120 to collect, which reminds me of Super Mario 64. And this reminds me of Donkey Kong Country. Nice nods, Nintendo. Kirby has plenty of copy abilities this time around, with new abilities including the Whip and the Leaf. Brand new features include a much more powerful inhale, performed by inhaling while shaking the Wii Remote up and down. This allows for giant blocks and larger enemies to be devoured. Also new is the super abilities that become available after inhaling glowing enemies in various levels. These include the Ultra Sword, Monster Flame, and more, and they destroy everything in your path. Each time you get one of these super abilities, eventually you'll break apart some of the scenery or part of the background or part of the level, which will bring you into a dark world filled with a purple wall that's making its way to you. Now, this wall can and will crush you if you aren't quick enough, so do be careful. Now, players and reviewers might think that the game is easy on the first playthrough. Yes, I said first. Clearing the game will unlock the extra game, which adds tougher and more plentiful enemies, souped up bosses, and cuts your life bar by a whopping 40%. Trust me, it's no stroll through Dreamland the second time around. And a little message to the reviewers out there: if you're going to complain about a game's lack of difficulty, and then make no reference whatsoever to there being a much harder extra mode that becomes available after clearing the normal mode, perhaps you should not be reviewing games if you're not going to play them thoroughly. But that's just my opinion, dumbasses. Anyway, there is so much to unlock. Challenge stages that require learning the stage layouts in order to get platinum medals, various sub-games including the return of the Arena and True Arena modes, which are boss trials and they test your true Kirby skill. Perhaps the greatest feature here is the inclusion of 4-person multiplayer. Anyone that picks up a Wii Remote can press the minus button to hop in the game and can choose from a different colored Kirby, King DDD, Meta Knight, and Waddle Dee. Hopping in costs Kirby 1 life, but said life is restored if the player drops out of the game at any time by holding down the minus button. Now, if you're playing multiplayer, I recommend using DDD, as he is quite overpowered and mainly useful in most areas and boss fights. During a 3-player run, I actually shouted out loud to a friend who was using Kirby. He was near a standard enemy, and we were in the middle of like a melee crazy-ass fight in extra mode. I shout out in the heat of the moment, "Get that guy! Suck him!" Fucking awkward as hell, but hilarious. These are things that you may or may not blurt out in the heat of the moment. You'll get caught up in the fun that is the multiplayer experience for this title. Now, I gotta say, I was a little bit let down by the lack of my favorite abilities, including the mirror, the wheel, and the yo-yo. However, I was extremely delighted to see that they incorporated hints of these abilities, such as a variation of the wheel being in the needle ability. Now, the graphics aren't quite epic yarn in terms of beauty, but they are still very, very good. The music is also very well done, with many classic tunes being remixed and enhanced. Aside from Dreamland 3 on the SNES, this may be the most difficult Kirby game I have ever played, taking into account the extra mode. The great thing about this game is that back in the 90s, during the Genesis and Super Nintendo wars, games like this were plentiful. Now, they're extremely rare and uncommon. I mean, it's a pure nostalgia trip and an overall fun experience. Play for the challenge, play for completion rate, whatever the hell you prefer. All that matters is that you have fun playing. And I can say with confidence that if you are a fan of Kirby or a fan of old school platforming gameplay, then you will have fun with Kirby's Return to Dreamland. It's available now, so hit the stores and pick up a copy.